Yeah, if somebody in Zoom can tell us whether we can hear Simon.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Good. I will start. So I'm going to talk about Baskerville at the University of Birmingham. That on screen is the picture of the end plate of there and one of the rack, well, 1.5 of racks of equipment that you can see there. You know, obligatory, let's get a photo in. But I had to chop it there because my colleague is standing right here in front of the next bunch of equipment. And I decided I wasn't going to let him be in shot. I would just have that. James, if he's actually paying enough attention, is probably going to note I'm also using the new university branding. Yeah. But he'll like the next slide more because of that. So Baskerville is one of the UK Tier 2 systems. There are 9 of them, well, maybe 8 now, because I think one's now being end of life, funded along with Archer 2. This, at the moment, as of today, it's 52 nodes, 46 of, so all of them have Ice Lake CPUs, 512 gig. 46 of them that went in the original deployment have 4 times A140 GPUs, and at a slightly later date, which I've managed to not put in my slides, I can't remember when, we added 6 A100 with 80 gigabyte GPUs, giving us I believe that's a total of 208 GPUs, but if my maths is wrong, then there we are. And 5 petabytes of, agreeing with Jorg on this, GPFS of, or whatever IBM are calling it this year. Lost track. There. This is a consortium of, so it's funded by the Engineering and Physical Sciences Research Council, which is part of the UK Research and Innovation, i.e. government funded by there. It's funded through those 2 grant schemes. There we have technology partners, obviously NVIDIA, Lenovo and OCF as our integrator. The sort of bigger point is this, the other side, the research partners, myself at the University of Birmingham, so it's there for our researchers, but it's also Diamond Light Source, which is the UK's national synchrotron. I'm reading this off the notes because I never can quite remember, which is located down in Harwell Science and Innovation campus in Oxfordshire. The Rosalind Franklin Institute is dedicated to transforming life science through interdisciplinary research and technology development. They're also just opposite the Diamond. Neither of those are right in Birmingham, just, you know, UK's not that far away from us, but it's still down the road a bit. And the Alan Turing Institute, who are the UK's National Institute for Data Science and AI. And OCF, yeah, I say this, most people in the UK probably know who they are who work in HPC. They're one of HPC integrator that's, as far as I know, only UK based, but quite a few places in the UK use them to provide HPC facilities. Now, this system, I'm going to go with the timeline, which is quite important, and this is something which I'll add in a moment. We got told we were funded in October 2020. And we were sort of asked, well, how quickly can you have this available? Somebody agreed that we would allow a hackathon, an NVIDIA Dirac hackathon in June, mid-June 2021. That was fine. We'd just come out of one lockdown at that point. There was a pandemic going on. That's the thing I haven't put on the slide. And we were locked down in Birmingham again by about then, which was when the storage arrived. I'm not quite sure how often I was on site in this period, but probably not at all. Now, that's okay. I don't deal with the hardware, bad hardware, guys. It was ordered in November. Storage arrived in December. Okay, we had the storage set up. The computer arrived in April. I have some notes on there. I ran my first Slurm job on the 20th of May. I must have already been on the system for at least 2 weeks because I'd fired an Open Blast bug report 2 weeks earlier than that, because the Ice Lake server CPU series was not yet supported in Open Blast. And you can partly see this when I have Lenovo GA product there. That's their general availability of the underlying system. That's sort of when Lenovo actually admitted to start selling them. So you can see that's after we've had them in site and had users on actually using the system. Yeah, it was quite a tight turnaround. The turnaround from me being able to actually log on, which was a very convoluted process in the first few weeks because I had to go via a very specific, the system was completely locked down to about 4 people. It was quite hard to get at H2. I had about 4 weeks to turn around a user stack that they could use and use for NVIDIA's that NVIDIA hackathon. The good news was while the CPUs were reasonably new, or basically very few people had them, the A100 GPUs were first available somewhere sort of back here. So more software supported, had less problems installing for the GPUs than I had installing for the CPUs, which was it's a bit more of a surprise than you might think there. So, as I said, using EasyBuild, we had a short turnaround. Also limited availability because while I was trying to install software stack, our sysadmins were trying to, like I said, set up Slurm. So, my first Slurm job was after I'd first installed OpenBlast or tried to install OpenBlast. So I'd be like, oh, the cluster's going down because we just need to sort some config out and things like that. But they managed to leave a bit of it up most of the time for me to use. So you get the cluster and you want to do, and this is sort of one of the very, very important things. And from some past experience was target what software. We gave the NVIDIA Dirac Hackathon people, please tell us really, really tightly what you want, and went through with some very obvious also for our local test users who we're going to know. I knew one of our big local users would want PyTorch from day one, so obviously targeted that. TensorFlow, GrowMax for one of the consortium partners, and most of the rest were then just NVIDIA libraries. But even so, that was still 200 software packages installed inside a month there. And where possible, reframe tests. Now, the good news was because I already had another cluster, I was copying some of the reframe tests over, particularly for things like these bits of software. And in some form, those tests are actually still running today. Because one of the things we've automated is all my reframe tests run each night or very early morning to give me a benchmark. So I have not all of them, a specific nightly set run each night. So I know what the benchmark of our system is. Now that combined only takes about half an hour to an hour of compute. They're specifically very short jobs. Just to give me something. But that then means when we have system maintenance, our sysadmins can give me the system back and I can instantly tell them whether we've messed something up there. And we tend to add reframe tests when we find they have broken something, or where I find I've broken something, we'll add a reframe test for it. Process. This is actually fairly much common as to how we install on any of our systems, or to either our system as well. Development, one of our team, James is in the room here, and some combination of Gavin, Vlad, and Chris are probably potentially watching online. Interactive job, that's they're going to development environment. Each of our team members has their own development environment. It can shadow the live module stack, but often they're actually there from the ground built up. Test to build either from the existing EasyConfig, user from PRs that are in flight in the EasyConfigs repository, or obviously that one at the end, create your own new EasyConfigs because they don't exist yet. Where possible, PR upstream is preferred for our team, but not always possible, or sometimes we want internal discussion, and then we'll just create an issue in our or merge requests in our GitLab repository with the required items, including easy blocks if we need some of those. Then our live stack, roughly the same, interactive job, a very, very similar bash script sourced to set up the EasyConfig, the live environment, build it live, and we have a post-DB process which we use to set out to deal with our mod spider cache. We do it completely outside of EasyBuild. there's historical reasons why we have this post-process step outside of EasyBuild. It's been there since before we were using Almod and before I think even we were using EasyBuild. So we've sort of just kept it. The other bit it does is it adds documentation of what we've installed to our website, all completely automated. Beyond SSH and user patch stuff, this is where actually our system starts becoming quite interesting, because I sort of mentioned those partner sites. Now, first off, as I said, we were in a pandemic, so there were quite a lot of people not on site anyway, even for our local users. But beyond that, Anjoring Institute is based in London, people all across the UK and probably further. Diamond and RFI are in Oxfordshire, so that's at least 50 miles away. And several of the things we wanted to do were non-traditional. So beyond the SSH and users submitting batch jobs attaching to a HPC system. So from day one, or well, not quite from day one, but from nearly day one, we had an open on-demand portal set up on the system. That's about 2 to 3% of the jobs day to day, but that hides a very large spike that during some periods of training, it will be nearly the only method being used on the system. So the heaviest month we've had is 22% of the jobs being there, but that probably means they were all of it for a week or something. And it's quite interesting to see and have that. And I really actually recommend Open On Demand as a very good interface. The other bit is several of our people have reasonably large chunks of data to transfer backwards and forwards. We have Globus deployed for that, and I just really, really like Globus. And something we're working on at the moment with one of our partners is triggering workflows by once they've transferred the data. So the Globus transfer the data, triggers a workflow. User does not even need to know how to submit a job, just automatically triggers once they've submitted it, transferred the data, once the data transfer is complete. And then once the job's complete, goes back the other way, which is quite interesting and will get written up and source available as to how we're doing it soon-ish. It's nearly there, I believe. And that we hit back to the questions, and I do thank our consortium partners, the team at Birmingham, because there was a lot of work going on. And obviously, I'm our funders for giving us the money. Questions?
Right. Thank you, Simon. Any questions? Jörg.
Thanks for a very interesting talk. I've noticed you are using Open On Demand as well. Do you use EasyBuild to get the software stack for Open On Demand, or how do you do that?
Yes and no. So we've changed over time is the answer on this one. On day one, everything was EasyBuild inside Open On Demand. Still, our full module stack is available inside, say, Jupyter Lab, but our Jupyter Lab instance runs from a Aptainer. Yes, whatever it would have been Singularity at some point, Aptainer image. And if you want to know anything about that, I'm going to have to point you at James because he knows. But yeah, so we run Jupyter Lab, not on Baskerville, but on our Bluebear, which is our tier 3 system. We run our studio in a server in exactly the same way that they're in an Aptainer image, and then we have them connect out. For our studio, one of the main reasons we did it, well, actually, in the same for Jupyter Lab, is by uncoupling it from the EasyBuild stack or the module stack, you can have the latest up-to-date RStudio server or Jupyter Lab connecting to the older module stack. And it doesn't have to be the same. So if you want to upgrade, you can, which makes it easier for some of our users it's always the same RStudio interface, always the same Jupyter Lab. You can just connect to whatever part of the module stack you want. And that was just there. And we have some other things. We also, one of the partners there is very heavily cryo-EM work. So we have things like the Rely On GUI inside Open On Demand for them to fire that up from there. So they don't have to do X11 forwarding and then just submit their jobs. There was one other thing I didn't actually mention, it just reminds me. So said the GA of Lenovo there, the one extra complication, that was for the water-cooled quad GPU, dual CPU nodes, which weren't our login nodes, obviously, because we weren't going to put a however expensive node like that as our login nodes. At that point, Lenovo did not have available an Ice Lake CPU air-cooled type node, or maybe water-cooled, whatever. So our login nodes were Cascade Lake. So we had no software available on them, but because everybody likes to do modular avail on the login node to find out what software's there, we had shadow module stack, which would fake modules, which if you loaded them went, this software is not available on the login node, but if you're on a compute node, you would have been able to do this. So you could do any of the sort of module spider, module, whatever, everything else still appeared and told them what software was there, because we like tried it for about a few weeks where it wasn't, and everyone was just going, there's no module, there's no software on your cluster. Like, we've got a website that lists it all. It's all on the compute node, as we've told you. No, there's no software. I've just done modular avail, and there's 2 modules listed.
All right. If nobody else has a question, I have a short question. The reframe tests, is that a public thing or is it internal?
It's internal. I'm trying to make them public. It's complicated. I'm trying to unhook the data from some of them.
So there's secret stuff in there, or stuff you cannot share or don't want to share?
There's a couple of things like I've at some point had, a lot of it is unhooking the Git history from them because they've had things like VASP.
Yeah.
And it's one of these, I just need to go through at some point and retrofit out what I'm not allowed to share. Because there's a couple of others that, like I said, some of them being triggered by failing jobs. So they're actually some of our private users data in there. I've tried to uncouple most of them, but it's time consuming.
Chasing users down to let you share it. Yeah.
And some of them have left the university in the meantime.
Okay, good. There's no questions.
But one of the comments I would make on the reframe tests is I was doing a lot of this before reframe started adding the library of tests in. So I would, if I wanted to spend a lot of time, I'd probably retrofit to actually refit to use those now instead of what I did, because some of it is basically I've done exactly what they've done in the test suite, but that wasn't available when I started.
All right. Good. Thank you, Simon. We'll stop the stream.